Howdy, folks. Welcome back to another edition of the Vinyl Vault. As always, I'm Parker Paget.
I'm Tony Wynn.
And today I picked out an album. I'm going to talk about, actually, Tony, I think we should actually start doing this a little bit. If it's not aware, based on the variety of our music tastes, we take turns picking albums.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it would be interesting if we started explaining why we picked the album. Does
Sure.
that make sense? So before I give out the name, before I give out the title, before we click the fancy buttons that shows you, this was an album that I knew when we started this series that I wanted to talk about. It was one of those albums that's, whenever you discuss, impactful, influential, some could argue Mount Rushmore albums of all time. This is always in the conversation. It may never make the top 4, but it's always in the conversation. I mean, Apple, bless Apple's heart, they ranked the top 100 albums, I think at the end of the year last year, maybe, early 2025, maybe. This album comes in at 99. I personally feel like that's really low, but that's just me. Mm-hmm. But we'll go ahead and just get into it. We're talking about Hotel California, folks. And I believe this is, so according to some of our research here, it's the 5th studio album from the Eagles. Also, this group is known for their I think they're known as the best rock band country ever produced. So it's interesting that they have that reputation. This album kind of dabbles in it, but it also, as we get into it, you'll see kind of changes behind the scenes that had kind of launched them from that country rock era into the classic rock that a lot of people that may not be, diehard Eagles fans, have, come to love. And so This was an album that came out in 1976. We all remember that year. It was 20 years before I was born. It was put out by Asylum Records. Do you think Asylum Records is still like in business, or were they like bought out? I just don't. Maybe they still are. I'm sure somebody knows.
I don't know. I think where people listen to specifically, a brand of record companies and stuff has kind of died off with streaming and everything like that. That I think that sort of mentality has kind of disappeared, but they still might be around.
They still might be around. Somebody will know.
Yeah.
Somebody will know. And so like I was saying before, the Eagles had kind of garnered this reputation of being, a country rock band. And so what was interesting about this, I had listened to some of the songs on this album for years and did not know. I had always assumed Joe Walsh was just part of the band. Mm-hmm. Joe Walsh, if you're not familiar with him, he came out with Rocky Mountain Way, and Life's Been Great. That was on his, I think, 2 of his solo albums were pretty successful. He joined the band before they made this, so he obviously has more of a rock and roll style to his guitar playing, and you hear that very, within the first track. There's several other songs on this album. One of the founding says here, Joe Walsh replaced Bernie Leadon. He left the band before this album. What a time. And then it was the last one to feature bassist Randy Meisner, which, if you remember, the Eagles really didn't have any albums after this. They had The Long Run, which some people actually debate whether The Long Run or Hotel California are which one's the better album. And then they didn't put out another studio album, for several years. They did a couple live albums, but not much after Randy left. But first, right off the bat, you get hit with Hotel California. It's probably one of the only, I'm just shooting from the hip here, I can't think of another album whose first track is as impactful as Hotel California has been on music history, American history. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that, if you're going to name the album after this in particular song and start it off with, track 1, gosh, this is to me one of the greatest songs like ever made. If I could put it up in a list, it would definitely be in like a top 10. definitely not 99 in terms of an album or anything like that. But song wise, I mean, it has the elements of telling this like mysterious story to kind of go in the past of when I first heard this song and really like paid attention to it. I mean, right off the bat, the guitar work, it catches you right off the bat, and you know that you're already kind of on a journey, and as you listen to the lyrics and you listen to the story, you're wondering like what are they talking about? Where are they going with this? Where is this Hotel California? Is this a real place? Like it seems like it might be haunted. It might be a weird, metaphor for other things. And I think it's one of the fun songs in music history of like we're not exactly sure what it's about, but it's intriguing that it's kind of fun to kind of interpret in our own way.
Yeah, when you listen to the lyrics, whenever I used to listen to it as a kid, I thought there was some sort of religious context to it, especially in the final verse when they say something about stealing their knives, but they just can't kill the beast.
Mm-hmm.
I had always assumed that because rock had that kind of satanic overtone reputation in some parts of the country, and so I kind of thought, you hear the word beast, I made that connection. But when you listen to it as an adult, a couple decades later, I get it sounds to me, and from our research, the band had talked about how they wanted this to kind of be a story, a cinematic story, kind of like a movie that takes you from beginning to end. I think they did that.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I listen to the lyrics now at the age I'm at, it kind of sounds like a guy who is just dehydrated and is having delusions of grandeur. Because I think the first line is oh wow, we just talked about how great the song is. I can't remember the first line.
Like driving on the highway, cool wind in
Yeah.
my hair. Basically, he's on the road, driving, and starts to feel a little sleepy and sees a light in the distance with the neon lights, saying, here's a hotel, come on by. And dropping by and then running into the front desk woman. And as she helps him during this time at the hotel here.
And that's kind of the vibe that I got was, thank you. Trying to adjust my camera here. It feels like it's kind of a story about, I don't want to say death. I mean, literally the line is you can check out anytime you like, but you can't ever leave.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I kind of got the vibe that, this was a person that was, imagining coming up on this fancy hotel where, the lady drives a Benz and she's got a lot of boys that she calls friends, and dancing in the courtyard. It seemed kind of like that. So in some of the research we found, Don Henley, great guy. He said for one story here about the themes for the song and the album. So they're the same quote. They're the same themes that run throughout our work: loss of innocence, the cost of to be naive. I don't know how to pronounce that word. The perils of fame, of excess, exploration of dark underbelly of the American dream. Idealism realized and idealism thwarted, illusion versus reality, and the difficulties of balancing loving relationships and work. And I had read a little bit about this album and how this kind of started the, for lack of a better phrase, the breakup. Don Henley and, my friends are going to be upset with me. Glenn Frey. They started coming at the seams a little bit. I think from what I've read, some have been quoted by saying, this song not the album, the song is when the band kind of peaked. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't go through the history from that point. I mean, you could tell. I mean, when I think of the Eagles, I mean, it's definitely Hotel California, like right off the bat. And whether or not it was their peak or not, you know, I mean, obviously it did extremely well in terms of numbers. But this song in particularly, I mean, what I really enjoyed finding out is that this whole album is technically a concept album, and Hotel California, the song, really sets the tone of the entire theme. If it indeed is a song about America, a song about excess and loss of innocence, and you feel that throughout the album, as you know, there we'll go to the other songs of like highlights and lowlights that are happening here. And if you replace all the references to like a female to like America, you know, or something like that, it really changes your viewpoint of like, oh, this may or may not be a love song or a breakup song. This might be America. This might be the music industry, you know, Hollywood, because it's very, very, very in particular, they chose the word California because there's a sort of magic to that word. You know, you think California, you're thinking Hollywood, you're thinking LA, you know, like things happen there, and it has its own stigmas and you know, stories from there. You know, it's almost like a myth to anyone who's outside of it. Even if you're in America, you know, you're just like, oh, at some point I need to go to California, I need to go to LA, and then, you know, of course, as an artist, you know, that's the place to go to, you know, try to live your dream, but knowing fully well that it's going to be extremely hard, and there's a lot of things that will prevent you, whether, you know, it's the lifestyles that exist there, or just how difficult it is to be able to break through and come out on top.
It should be worth noting, you know, you talk about how it could be about a girl, it could be about a place. I think in some of the notes here that some of the lyrics, not the entire song, but some of the lyrics are somewhat of a direct reference of a breakup that I think some of the band members were going through. I think when I think of the song as a whole, I don't think Hotel California is a hotel. I don't think it's a real place. I think it's kind of like a manifest destiny. I think it's kind of like I think it's less of a physical place and more of maybe a state of euphoria, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, the lyric, just as you said, that stuck out to me, that as you know, my first listen to it, of the "you just can't kill the beast." Obviously, the beast and the master's chamber. I mean, that's very much a reference to Satan and that kind of stuff. So I thought maybe like, is Hotel California like purgatory, and you're, you know, are you going to go to heaven, or are you going to go to hell, or are you just stuck where, you know, you're you know, stuck in the middle, and you know, you're just forever going to be there. And that's what the Hotel California is hey, welcome to the, you know, Hotel California. It's such a lovely place.
And like a cynical kind of humor.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I don't think there's a single lyric that wasn't extremely extremely well thought of and meticulous, that there's ideas that it's vague enough for people to interpret it in different ways. And though they, I'm sure, wrote it in a very particular version for themselves, I think they also put in little references of, you know, again, if the song is indeed about like loss of innocence and everything like that, I mean, you can see where the woman that is showing him around is very materialistic, you know, has the Mercedes-Benz, has the pretty boys and everything like that. But by the end of the song, the main character is trying to get away. It's trying to be like, hey, no, like I don't want this. But I think the last lyric of you can check out any time, but you can't ever leave. I think that's a direct reference that like the loss of innocence, that once you're exposed to trauma, exposed to, being in a contract with the music business, or you've had the taste of the LA life and the excess and everything like that, that there's no turning back. You're no longer the same person. So there's no, you can never leave.
Yeah, I kind of get the same vibe like that with like fame and death. Once you've reached a certain summit, like you can stop doing what you're doing, which obviously the band in the next several years would just stop for a minute, but that fame never leaves. So I mean, we can look at it from a literal sense, we can look at it from a metaphorical sense, and then we get probably one of the greatest guitar solos of all time. It's very long, but it's very good. It's probably in my top 5 guitar solos of all time. I actually have, we like to talk about unique talents here at the news station, and I can air drum that entire solo.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
It's a lot of car rides with it playing. You learn a lot, including the hi-hat and the toms. Like, I think the drums are just as important in that solo as the guitar.
I'd like to see that. In fact, I mean, since you've got your instrument with you, I mean, I can give you the floor if you like.
For legal purposes, we can't play, but just imagine how cool that would look. Get this off me. Hotel California it's we could do a whole episode on just that song.
Oh yeah,
but fortunately for you and Mr. Fry and Mr. Henley and Mr. Walsh and the rest of them, there's more songs on this album. So immediately, it's funny. The Eagles were like, we're not a country rock band. Like, here's a little acoustic guitar, and then here's nothing but like classic rock. And then they're like, all right, well, what's your next track? And they're like, country. And because that's a New Kid in Town, it's track 2. That one relies a lot on, I don't have the notes in front of me. I don't know. Henley and Frey take turns singing a lot of the songs on this album, as they took a lot of turns singing all their songs in their entire catalog. This one is a very soft rock. It's very harmony heavy. Some might say they were the original Boyz II Men. Some might say that. Some they would be wrong, but some might say that.
Some air drummers would say that.
Some professional, successful, handsome air drummers would say that.
Debatable. You're beautiful.
Anyway, so I mean, New Kid in Town. Obviously, it's a story about a new kid in town, and that's the thing about the Eagles is they're not really big on metaphors, from what I can tell. They're pretty self-explanatory. Here's a new kid in town. Everybody's talking about the new kid in town.
Yeah.
There seems to be a debate or a conflict in the song where, this new kid in town seems to capture, from what I listen to, the heart of this woman that the singer is dating. And honestly, the song's just this guy complaining the whole time about how this guy's new in town and he's taking his girl. And here's 3 more part harmonies to explain how angry I am about it. It's a good song, don't get me wrong. It kind of takes me back to like the 50s when they would do like those songs where like maybe like one singer and 3 backups, and they're like, "Who is that?" And then they would be like, "Oh, like she's the new girl." Like it kind of took me back to that era of music.
Yeah,
it's very Shirley Temple-y.
Yeah.
No offense to Shirley Temple, your drinks are great.
I looked at this album not just as the straight value of like, oh, it's talking about a boy and a girl, but also through the lens of, is it America? Is it the music industry? If you look at it through the music industry, then you can really see it as like they're the new kids, as in the new band in town. They're the new hotness, right? But then suddenly a new band comes in and they're no longer relevant. You know, they're like, well, what are they doing that we're not doing? Like we're so great, and but everyone's paying attention to this new band, and so that was sort of my interpretation of it.
Let me ask you this question. Using your theory, I wonder if the new kid in town, if we use your theory, is maybe the classic hair metal rock that we know now. And hypothetically, what if the Eagles kind of saw that on the horizon? And they were like, don't forget, we're still country rock. I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting to think about, in hindsight. I mean, I'm not saying that, Fry and Henley are Nostradamus, but.
Well, so what? It was the late or mid 70. Okay, 76. So disco is still a thing. Yeah, I mean the 80s obviously. I think it might be more so 80s pop that
could be
to come by.
Could be. I mean, 80s pop was all about love, and I mean, obviously, if there's a romantic relationship on the fringe, poor guy. But so that one,
I think they wanted to continue being the new kid in town.
Yeah.
That everyone, the shiny new toy.
They knew they had to evolve at some point.
Well, I mean, this is their 5th album. That's the thing too. It's just like, well, you guys have been around, and obviously they peaked to, I think obviously with this album coming out and then the song and everything, like maybe the old kid is like, you know what, I'm more of a fan of the Eagles than this new kid. You know what I mean?
It was a fan service kind of deal. I mean, it's a good song. If we're being completely honest, there's sometimes I skip it. There's sometimes I don't. It's not a no skip, and it's not a hard skip. It's a song.
Sure.
And it's all right. I mean, it's a good song. Live in the Fast Lane, track 3. If I read something. Correct me if I'm wrong. You also did some research into this as well. I could have swore I read somewhere that this song was basically concocted on a late night drive, and there were drugs involved.
Yeah.
We do not condone drugs, but if it leads to a really good song, no, don't do drugs. Yeah, I mean, but it was also the 70s and 80s. I mean, what was it? Christopher Cross, sailing. He did Ride Like the Wind. He's in this documentary about yacht rock, and he told the producers of the documentary that he used to sell marijuana on the side just to pay for his demos. So I mean, drug use, drug sales, drug consumption, not a stranger to the music industry. And
especially in rock music.
Happened to my Eagles.
Oh, yes, of course, because they're so innocent. Hence, writing a song about dealing with a drug dealer driving 90 miles per hour.
Life in the Fast Lane.
What do you want
him to do?
This song right off the bat is you mentioned it might as well be a staple of when you get the stink face. When the riff comes in, and then whenever I think the rest of the band comes in with the drums and everything like that.
It's a hard riff.
Yeah, it's a fantastic riff that really pushes everything forward, and you can feel it. Like the music, it's what I really love whenever music like soundtracks the themes that they're trying to go with. Lyrics aside, I mean, like it feels like a driving song.
I don't know about you, but I was listening to it the other day, and the way the bass line moves with the drums, I mean, obviously the guitar riff and the guitar work is very much classic rock, 70s classic rock. But it kind of felt like, it kind of felt funk disco-esque. If you listen to it again, pay attention to the way the bass line plays with the drum set. And it kind of feels like that disco-y kind of vibe, which... I mean, if you look at the historical context, disco was well and alive then, and we talk about how this is kind of a concept album. I mean, it's not impossible to think that they were playing around with things. You know, that maybe they were trying to figure out what their identity was because they had garnered that reputation of being, you know, a country rock band.
I'm going to throw out a theory.
Ooh. Know it.
So you may or may not know this, but while they were recording the album, they were next door to Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath was also recording their album, and multiple times they had to stop recording because Sabbath was so loud. To me, the bass, the rhythm section of the Eagles for this in particular song reminds me of metal, slower metal, but just the hard hits in the top, and then a driving type of riff that goes throughout it. I wonder if, you know, they weren't, you know, secretly also kind of listening to what Sabbath is doing, and trying to integrate a little more, you know, edge as they were trying to stray a little bit further away from just the country roots and trying to really get into rock. Yeah. That's how I felt, and probably why I kind of like really, this is not a skip song for me. So.
No. Two things. One, if you've never heard of Mac Sabbath, this would be the time to listen to it's still Black Sabbath music. For people that don't know, this is totally related to the Eagles. There is a cover band, a famous cover band. Don't change. Don't do it. I see you. Don't do it.
I'm just putting it away.
There's a famous cover band that only plays Black Sabbath music, and it's called Mac Sabbath. And if you're not familiar with them, Google them, because they all dress up like McDonald's characters. You have Ronald McDonald, obviously. You have the Hamburglar, Grimace. You have a guy, Mayor McCheese, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's Mayor McCheese. Totally unrelated to everything. Great concept. Just a great concept.
That's all you wanted to bring up.
I just wanted to get that out there. Definitely, if we notice that there's a spike in Google searches for Mag Sabbath, we know we've done our job.
I was gonna show, like, they came to town. I mean, maybe a year or two ago, and I went to see them along with it's a Ned Flanders band.
Oakley Dokley.
Oakley Dokley, yeah. So those two bands came to Springfield.
They're like a metal band, and they all dress up like Ned Flanders, mustache and all.
And they're like screaming and growling, except the lyrics are all super, super nice, and so it's fantastic. Mac Sabbath was also very, very awesome. They all dress up. The production of it all. But back to the Eagles. We don't have time for Mac Sabbath.
We love tangents. What are we talking about again?
Life in the fast lane.
I think it's interesting that you and I listen to these songs and we both kind of take differences away from them. Yeah. But it's interesting to me. You have Hotel California that's, you know, it starts off country rockish, very much ends on classic rock. New Kid in Town, country rock through and through. And just so we're clear, we're not saying it's bad that they tried to get away from these roots. It's very clear that they were trying to do something different than what they usually do. So we're not saying shame on their country rock era. We're not saying, you know, we're not pro rock. And then you get Life in the Fast Lane, which is just start to finish, just hard late 70s, early 80s rock. Mm-hmm. And then you get to Wasted Time, and you almost get whiplash because of just the drastic change in tempo, in mood, in instruments, in tone. That being said, great song. Wasted Time. It's another one of those self-explanatory songs about investing in someone or something, and then finding out that it's not what you'd hope for. And so the last line of the chorus makes it very apparent. You know, I think he says, afraid that it's been wasted time. Mm-hmm. And so it's, you know, I do wonder if that's somewhat of a unintended commentary on the band, because not that they're wasting their time, but I'm sure that I don't want to speak for them, but when you know how history plays out and you know how I can't remember the nickname for it, but there's this famous concert that they had where it just all the wheels fell off the wagon, and it has a funny little nickname, but I can't remember the nickname. Somebody tell us in the comments the nickname. And knowing what we know now about how they ended, I don't want to say that these people are like foreshadowing their own future, but like a lot of these songs on this album, especially the B side, are about reflection and moving on and moving forward. And I don't know if maybe they saw the writing on the wall at the time. I think the story goes is that after Hotel California was the success that it was, they wanted to really just like kind of mind their own business for several years. Unfortunately, they didn't, and they came out with The Long Run, which the joke is that they should have called it The Long One because it took so long for them to finish this album, that album, due to artistic differences. It's just I wonder if they knew that, like, I don't think Da Vinci knew when he painted the Mona Lisa that it was going to be the Mona Lisa.
I mean, yeah.
I don't think the Eagles knew when they were making this album that they knew. I don't think they knew the impact it was going to have. Let's see, 1976. We're looking at 49 years since then, if my math is correct. I'm not a mathematician. It's just interesting that 2, 3, 4 guys just hanging out in a studio in California could create something that would stand as long as it has. It's interesting. But Wasted Time, definitely an interesting album or an interesting song for me. You take over.
I think that you're right on the nose in terms of, as an artist, I mean, pretty much in any kind of job, there's always that moment of like imposter syndrome of thinking that you're not. Maybe you're wasting your time. Maybe you're not the person you think you are, or someone's going to see you as a fraud. And it might be a moment where, if this album did not do well, that could have been the end of the Eagles, or at least that was the feeling that maybe Henley or Frey were kind of feeling, was just like, man, like, what is going on? Like, where it feels like, just like they said in the previous song with New Kid in Town, like they were once hot and no longer the hot thing anymore. And I think they're just being very disheartened by the business and everything like that. I mean, obviously the lyrics being very straightforward, but to me, again, I deliberately tried not to think of it as just a straight up like breakup song, or a reflection of a bad commitment to another person, but rather, again, to the struggles of of pursuing your art in a place that is very, very, has a quick turnaround. That being said, to me, I struggled so much listening to this song.
You just hate good music.
To me, the title is perfect. It was a wasted time for me, as I listened to the album about 3.5 times, and I find my mind.
That he hated it so much he couldn't even get through it a 4th time.
Wasted time. I always found myself just my mind wandering, and then thinking, oh, this song is still going. Like, come on. And maybe it's the placement, because it's right after.
Placement's my thing.
Sure. Maybe it's not that at all, but maybe you think differently and can talk about that in a bit. But I think it's just, I don't know. There was something about it that I felt like it didn't fit. And maybe because they're trying to do these longer storyline songs, right? Because you'll see that in obviously in Hotel California, and then especially the very last song. that they're trying to convey almost like these like cinematic stories, and this one just felt like a very, very long movie that I was not interested in the first place.
Gone are the days of cinematic storytelling through song. This is in I don't know. Let me just ask you. I mean, the Boyz II Men album was obviously the outlier in a lot of the songs or the albums that we listened to. I don't want to accuse you of anything, but you just don't seem to like a lot of songs that are below like 120 beats per minute. And I don't know if that's just because you yourself are in a rock band and you probably don't play a lot of ballads.
I mean, I think there's a hint of that. That being said, like my musical taste is, I think, varies quite a bit, and I really do like ballads. There's just something about. I think I'm very in particular about my ballads, though, and I think my issue with this in particular one was that it felt like a rambling conversation opposed to a song.
Okay.
It was a conversation instead of a song to me. Whereas Boyz II Men, those are songs. That's I think that's the big difference.
Do you listen to a lot of other Eagles music?
Singles. I can say that this is my first Eagles album that I've listened to.
Have you heard Desperado?
Yes.
Do you like Desperado? Do you like Wasted Time more? They're kind of in the similar vein of slow songs about, coming to terms with something.
Yeah, Desperado to me has just more musicality. The fact that you say Desperado, I can already hear it. When you say Wasted Time to me, I'm not singing the lyric.
Yeah.
I'm not, to me, it's not like a playlist song. And like I said, I want to skip it every time.
Yeah.
Or I'm not even paying attention to it at that time because my mind is wandering and I'm not thinking about what is being said and what's being portrayed. Like I could only interpret this song whenever I actually sat down and read the lyrics along with it. Otherwise, again, I felt like it was more of a conversation than it was a song and piecing together melodies and what have you.
Well, I mean, it could be worse. There could be a shorter version of this with nothing but like a string concerto orchestra, but
yeah,
that they wouldn't do that.
They would not do that and extend the song even more so.
So what's the next song on this album?
Oh, it too is called Wasted Time.
It's also Wasted Time.
Good. We need another minute
I
and 22 seconds of it.
I still enjoyed it. I did like the fact that
I think this is why it dropped down to 99.
I can't legally say what I want to say.
Say it.
I liked it. I don't know. I liked it. I think it's a nice break. And it kind of just, if somebody wants in the comments to correct me or not, I'm pretty sure Henley and Frey had their hands on this arrangement as well. And it just kind of shows, assuming I'm correct, it kind of just shows that these aren't just like guys that just play a guitar and, destroy a hotel room and move on to the next city, that these are like, dare I say it, musicians, and artists. And, that's the thing about this album. When you listen to it front to back, you may not agree with everything on it, but you understand that this isn't just it's not just some album that the Suits were like, hey, we got to put an album out. What do you have? This was something that I think this was a snapshot of their lives at the time.
Yeah.
I think that they were dealing with a lot of things going on at the moment. I think that they were dealing with things in society, culturally, musically. And I think that this is a really good snapshot of just their emotions throughout. And adding to the cinematic element of it, so far, in all the albums that we've picked so far, I like to say so far. So far.
so far.
This is probably the most cinematic album that we've picked thus far. And you can tell, I mean, who puts a string orchestra in the middle of their classic rock album? Not me.
Right.
I'm putting out rock albums all the time. No orchestras. It was definitely a risk. Do you like the orchestra version more or the version with words?
So yeah, I
Can't skip both.
you're absolutely right, and that's the thing is that when I heard the instrumental, it was again musical, and really to me then I could really appreciate the musicality of these guys because to me the Eagles were able to you could tell a musician knows what they're doing if they can start using and incorporating harmony. And the Eagles are so great at harmony.
Yes.
Whether it be vocally or the guitar work or just the essence of the whole band. And bringing in Jim Ed Norman to do the strings for this, like really to me adds the musicality that was kind of needed. Plus, I think I didn't listen to this on the vinyl, but that's got to be kind of a surprise. To go in there and just hear this, hear that song and be like, ooh, what's this? What's going on here? And then realize like, oh wow, it's the instrumental version of the previous song.
It's like a goodbye.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that this album was very, very meticulously crafted and pieced together, and that they were very much reflecting upon everything that was just going on in their lives here.
Today, if you get on your cellular device, I don't get paid by a company to say a specific one, so just cellular device, and you go to the music streaming app or whatever, even if it's an album that's going to be released in the future, sometimes you could still see like the titles of the songs. I imagine in '76 you didn't really get a sneak peek at what songs were going to be on this album. You would get the singles, you could get the 45s and all that. I really wish I could have seen everyone's face when they picked up a copy and they were like, okay, cool, wasted time. What? Thinking there's a typo because they basically just did a string, orchestra version of the same song.
Right.
I imagine I don't know if you had the same look on your face, but I feel like I'm imagining a scenario where you get finished listening to the song "Wasted Time" and you're like, okay, cool, that's over. What is this? And you're like, I thought I just got away from this song. And here comes a much more better arranged version of this song.
I will be completely honest. The strings and everything caught my ear, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And hearing it and being like, "Oh, this is nice. This is nice to hear." Finally a release from that whatever that previous song was, not realizing that it was the same song. That's how distant like my mind was when listening to the original or the version with lyrics on it. Was that I just wasn't paying attention, or I couldn't. And then what did caught my attention was the instrumental, and then really listening to everything. But that being said, having heard it and going back to the albums and stuff, I mean, it still doesn't do it for me. But the instrumental,
That's fine.
It is what it is. I mean,
we can all have bad taste in music. That's fine. So
the title is perfect for that song. That's all I'm saying.
That's the end of side A, and so side B hits you with what I think is probably the hardest rock song that the Eagles have come out with, and that's saying something given "Victim of Love." The story goes is that basically "Victim of Love," and I think maybe another one, but definitely "Victim of Love." Aside from the singing part, recording, the singing aspect. This was all done live. Nowadays, maybe this was in the past. I can't speak for the past. I wasn't there. But traditionally, from what I understand, is that when they put songs together, they record it in layers and then they layer it all together. While the Eagles were like, no dice, we're just going to do it. And I don't know if maybe that had anything to do with the Black Sabbath thing now that I think about it. I don't know if maybe they were just like, hey, what if we all just get together and make this as loud as possible? And like they can't interfere with us. They're just relying on the power of friendship. I don't know. It's a good song. I like it. It's very Joe Walsh. Very much. You can tell Joe Walsh has his thumbprints, not his thumbprints, thumbprints all over this, from the opening intro, the opening riff. There's a guitar solo about 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah,
it's just a good song. Sorry, good song.
As you've suspected, because maybe it's the faster, more rocking song. Yeah, it was definitely a song that I enjoyed more than others. I would say I still prefer side one over side two.
Oh yeah.
But that being said, yeah, "Victim of Love" to me was probably the best song in side two.
Yeah, that's the thing about this album is we are not diehard Eagles fans. Go Chiefs. And
fly birds fly.
It's one of those albums. I've talked about Thriller having one of the best 5-track runs. I think it's from track 2 to track 7. Besides the point, Hotel California to me has a great 6-track run. And then the last 3, they don't do it for me. I mean, they're good songs if you love the band that much and you listen to their music all the time, you probably really enjoy those. They're good listens, but I'm not, if I'm in the car and I have the aux cord, I'm not bumping these last 3.
Sure.
I think the first one of the last 3 is Pretty Little Maids All in a Row. Not sure what that one's about. I was listening to it. I really liked the music. I wasn't really in tune with the lyrics. I don't know if there's any history behind that one at all.
So one struggle that I had because I didn't listen to the vinyl was that there's several remasters and extended versions of this album that I ended up listening to other songs that we are not going to talk about. And so
we keep it OG.
Yes. So honestly, I can't remember what Pretty Maids All in a Row is, what it sounds like.
Honestly, I didn't even listen to it.
I had to go back and specifically find the original release and listen to the songs individually. That being said,
do you have a turntable?
I don't. Yeah, no, I don't.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I mean, you could borrow my copy. I didn't know if you had a place or the apparatus.
I've got a couple of records, and it's mostly for decoration, mostly for having it, with the intent of eventually starting a collection and getting a turntable. But yeah, it's just not been a thing that I've done.
We'll work on it.
Yeah. I mean,
once
honestly,
we start getting paid here, we'll start working on it.
Honestly, doing this has, just furthered the love of music for myself. And yeah, I couldn't help but I went to Walmart on Monday and was trying to find electronics and stuff and happened to go by Walmart's selections of vinyls. I was like, oh, these are good albums or whatever. And and I was more in tune of wanting to pick those up and look at the covers and the art and stuff, opposed to a CD. I don't think I've physically picked up a CD in a decade.
Yeah, my car only has a CD player, so I know a Goodwill hates to see me coming because their CDs are pretty cheap, and I'm getting some good collections going. But the next track, love that transition. The next track, I can't remember the exact title. Tony, if you can read it for me. It's something.
Try and Love Again.
Try and Love Again. Not to be confused with LeAnn Rimes. That one I actually did like. I was listening to it this morning. It was pretty good. It kind of had like that New Kid in Town kind of vibe. And if we want to get super metaphorical, you could argue that this is an attempt of the band, trying to fall back in love with what they do. You can interpret it as it is a love song, trying to repair relationships. You could also argue the relationships are between the band itself. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I sat down and listened to the music and read the lyrics along with it, and again using a different perspective of the music business and everything like that. Like, again, I think it's just as I'm talking about listening to these albums every week and falling in love with music again. I think they're going through the same stuff. The struggle of loving something so much and it hurts you at times, but you just can't help but like going back to it. That's just try and love again.
Yeah. And then you'll notice we're coasting through these last three. They're just not. They're just, no offense to Mr. Eagles. They're just not as. They're just not. I just don't think they're as good as the first six. But the last one is The Last Resort. Tony, you were talking about how that one has, kind of going back to the cinematic feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a story. That is a story of, to me, America, right? I mean, just going through the history of it all. And I mean, it's not a song that at least to me, I don't think it's a playlist song. Like, oh man, I got to really listen to the history of everything that happened in this country.
There's some lyrics in there that are interesting too.
Absolutely. I think it's an important song that they had to get out there. I believe they wrote it in the context of the environment and the struggles of seeing how we are destroying it and our homes or other people's homes, and the irony of referring to it as paradise whenever we're messing up paradise. I think it's just a great straightforward insight into how the band was feeling about where they were physically and what they were seeing around them.
Yeah, they didn't do a lot of politically charged songs. They didn't really take a lot of sides when it came to major issues in those times. If they did, I'm not aware of it. I'm not saying that they. I know I just said that they didn't. From my perspective, they didn't write any. They didn't do anything Bob Dylan did. They didn't do anything that Green Day did. But I do think that they do inject some of their subtle commentary in this album. I like the song because I like it for the music. Not crazy about the lyrics. There are some lyrics in this song that I hear in 2025, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to say that. And it's not because it offends me. It doesn't offend me. It's just I know that, in today's political climate, some people would take issue with certain things. And my perspective is that that's some of the lyrics in that song some people could take issue with. Not saying it's bad. Not saying it's good. But I like the music. And it really, I talked about it. We talked about Wasted Time and is it pronounced reprise or reprise?
Reprise.
Reprise? Does that have a fancy meaning that I don't know about?
Reprisal.
Does it just mean like bringing it back?
Yeah, I believe.
Oh, cool. But like that kind of gave me the vibes of like a goodbye. This kind of gives me the vibes of a little bit of a goodbye, but more of like a less of like an emotional goodbye and more of like a riding off into the sunset, kind of calling it on your own terms. And I think and that may not even be close to their intention with this song, but just listening to it 49 years later, that's the vibe that I get. Is that it's kind of like this era is here. country rock riding into the sunset. We are officially a rock band. We will not rock you because that's not our song. But yeah,
Yeah, I could see that. To me, again, the album, knowing that it was supposed to be a concept album about, whether it was America or the American dream or very specifically the music business and what have you. I think this was a thing where if they were talking about America and everything was hinted of like, obviously there's a lot of personal stuff of people going through split ups and love and everything like that. I think this was supposed to be like, hey, despite everything you just heard about our personal things, there is a bigger issue going on, and it's where, it's our home. And I think it's just one of those things where, again, it's just supposed to, put a light onto, like, despite all the, little stuff, there's a bigger issue going on that needs to be worked on. So that was my interpretation of it, of why it was there too.
But overall, good album.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good album. Good job, guys.
You did it, Mr. Eagle.
So obviously we need to talk about the artwork. Let's pull up that album cover.
Bam.
So actually, never mind. Come back to me.
No.
Look at him. Look at me. Look at him. Look at me. So we have a copy of it with us. Do you like this? This is what we pay. This is the special effects. So this is photo. This is a photo. This is photo. This is a photo of the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Look at this photograph.
Look at this graph. And I'll hold it up a little higher. And so I believe the story goes, Tony, you have the history in front of you. I believe this was one of 3 photos taken of different hotels. I think the story goes is that basically they wanted a hotel.
Yes.
And they just basically said, get us a photo of a hotel. And I can't remember the guy's name. Do we have the name of the photographer?
It is by David Alexander.
David Alexander. Thank God for David Alexander. So he takes this photo of the Beverly Hills Hotel as the sun setting, and I believe purposely giving it an eerie type feel, kind of leaning into this purgatory theory that we have. As far as I've read, I believe the Eagles may have had temporarily gotten themselves in hot water with the Beverly Hills Hotel. They weren't super fond of it. I do know that from what I've read, people have had a hard time replicating this photo just because of the sun, the way, obviously there's some trees and some bushes and just the way the lighting is. It's one of those kind of one-of-a-kind photographs. But this is the back. It's the inside of the hotel. I just realized there's green in it, so you can actually, if I pull it over my face...
Does it disappear a little bit? Yeah.
It does disappear a little bit. So, and then this is my copy. I got it from a place that I'm not going to say the name of until they pay me money. But this is the inside of it. And then right here is the lyrics for Hotel California. Obviously, the band is... I'm looking at this all in reverse. So, I don't know. It kind of gives me like a Shining vibe.
Yeah.
Am I crazy for that?
No. They very much intended to try to do a sinister-looking hotel.
Yeah.
In fact, I was told that on it there's like a shadow person, like on the top of like stairs or something like that.
Where? I gotta look at this.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, is it this?
Yeah, maybe. Wow. What is that?
That's actually kind of creepy. I'm gonna set this mic down for a second. I think we're referring to. I need to go the other way. Right here. This isn't super focused, but if you look, there's a face right there, guys. There's a face. I'm not making this up. There's a face. And now that I know that exists, yikes.
Right?
I don't like that. See, that's the problem now is like, now every time I look at it, I'm just going to see that face. I'm not going to see this group of people.
Right.
But what's interesting, so we're going to do a little unboxing here of the album that I have. And I understand that this is probably, I'm not a vinyl expert. All right. I got into vinyls a couple years ago, and basically this copy that I got it from a guy in Springfield. He had recently just been given a box of records donated to him. I guess somebody either donated or sold them. And these were all like in really good condition. So I have no idea if this is some sort of rarity. All I know is that this is likely not it's not a reissue. I'll put it that way. Not saying it's a first pressing, not saying it's some crazy deal. It also comes with this poster of the band.
Nice hat.
I mean, guys, tell me this isn't one of the greatest things of all time. So they're all looking, they're putting thirst traps in LPs. And so obviously, this kind of goes back to our,
Oh, that's a little green.
Oh, it's kind of got a green tint to it, folks. Leave me alone. And it kind of has that Breakfast in America vibe, that like 1950s, dealio. We've got some, stuff on here, some information. But one thing I wanted to point out was, and I don't know if we'll be able to see it, but on the record itself, I'm sure I'm going to catch some flack for how I'm holding it. But underneath, I'm trying to get this right. Basically, on this inner wax, I can balance it just off the light, right there. If you look at the bottom of the light, there is a message in the inner wax. And this is on both sides. And so on side A, it just says, "Is it 6 o'clock yet?" I don't know what that means. I don't know. But side 2, it says, "VOL is 5-piece live." And so that's obviously a reference to, we can go back to 2 now. Obviously, it's a reference to the fact that they recorded this somewhat live. And I always, it's, you don't get things like this on streaming. So call me old, let me get on my soapbox, but I think physical media is awesome. And, totally different tangent. If you have DVDs, keep them. Because just keep them. Don't sell them. Keep them. Because if you saw the resurgence of vinyl, I'm calling it now in 2025. We're going to see a resurgence in physical media across the board. But I love these little, like, I don't want to call them Easter eggs either, because like I said, I don't know if it's some rarity or if it's some rare copy or if it's valuable or something. But I just think it's interesting that, like, in 1976 or, and the reason I say that I know it's not a reissue is because typically when you have these reissues, they have the original copyright year and then they have the copyright year in which it was reissued. So, like, for example, my copy of 1984 by Van Halen, it has the original year, 1984, and it also says copyright 2015. So I know that this was not made in 1984. I believe this one is from 1976 and is still in good condition for 1976. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But it's so interesting to think that 49 years ago, they were like, "Hey, what if we put like little scribble scrabbles in the inner wax?" And they were like, "Awesome idea, Joe Walsh." But that's the artwork. Obviously, it has significant meaning. People know that photo the second they see it. Like I said, I'm pretty sure Da Vinci did not know when he was making the Mona Lisa that it would be one of the most recognizable artworks of all time. Mm-hmm. And I imagine when the photo of this hotel was taken, was it Mr. Alexander? Jason Alexander? Not Jason Alexander. Not the guy from Seinfeld.
Boom, 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 boom.
Who was it?
Oh, that took the photo?
The photographer. I want to give him his credit. If he's...
I lost it.
It's been 49 years. If he's still around, hopefully he's still around. I believe it's we'll just go with Mr. Alexander.
David
Alexander.
with
David.
art direction by Kosh or Kosh.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with David Alexander.
Okay.
Great album front to back. There are a couple skips for me, but it definitely warrants its place in the top 100. I just take issue on where it's placed.
I agree that it should definitely be in the 100. It is a fantastic album with some fantastic songs. I think the title track being a huge outlier in there and being so influential and really pushing the buttons. And I think it's just great to kind of see the ups and downs of somebody who's made it and still isn't satisfied, or seeing the pros and cons of that lifestyle and everything. And I'm glad that they were brave enough to talk about it and be very meta about it. So yeah, it's definitely a very, very important album in music history.
Just out of curiosity, I'm assuming you had heard Hotel California before this.
Oh yeah.
How many other tracks on this album had you heard before you started this?
Life in the Fast Lane. That's it. Again, I listened to a different album and it had other songs that I was like, oh, I didn't know the Eagles did this. But that being said, it was not on this album.
So it was a pretty good exposure.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to new music, and like I said, New Kid in Town, I really, really enjoyed. And then there's other songs that I feel is not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun experience, and I'm glad to actually hear it. So,
All right. Any other final thoughts, Tone?
no final thoughts. If you guys have any comments, suggestions for albums for us to listen to, or if you know some of the information about the Eagles, or maybe that album, because again, I think it's really fascinating that you do have a little message on there. That if you know anything more about it, feel free to let us know. Yeah.
And we do. We have started to slowly gain a little bit of traction with this. We're hoping, obviously, for more. Don't be afraid to suggest an album. Don't be afraid to let us know what you think. Even if you disagree with our let alone opinions, or if you agree or disagree with our choices, we want that feedback. Music is all subjective. Everyone interprets it the way that they interpret it. Now that could be for a multitude of reasons, but you interpret things the way you do because of who you are. Mm-hmm. As we said before, Tony and I like to take turns picking albums, but the reason we welcome suggestions is because, if we're sitting there trying to figure out which album we want and there's a suggestion, maybe it's something we didn't think about. Maybe it's something that's worth our time. Not to say that there's albums not worth our time, but you know what I mean. We would want to, somebody from our digital team suggested we do Kids Bop. We probably won't, but it's definitely we do like to see what people want to hear about, want to learn about. Maybe it's something that's local and underground that we've never heard of that might be worth some time. But that's gonna do it. You can check out, but you can't ever leave. So we'll be back doing this. We will be taking a hiatus for the next week, unless you want to do it by yourself. I'll be on vacation, but we will be back for July 11th. Mm-hmm. We'll have an episode up July 11th. So about 2 weeks to give us your suggestions, and we'll go from there. But other than that, from Vinyl Vault, I'm Parker Padgett.
Tony Wynn.